Hello friends, in this particular video lecture, we will try to understand the basic concept required to understand the types of cryptography, keys and text. So basically, why the cryptography is necessary or what is meaning by cryptography? Preventing the unauthorized access to transmission. Now, what it means by authorized and unauthorized access to transmission? If I want to tell something to you, then here, me myself will be the speaker and you are the listener. So, I want to transmit some message to you. So, the message will be like this, some text or some any symbol like that. And that message should be reached towards you. But somebody else will try to observe it. Somebody else may try to listen it or may try to modify it. So this is nothing but the unauthorized user. Now here in the whole process, you are the authorized user. Authorized means who is having the right. Authorized means who is having the right to listen the message, to take the message. But unauthorized user means who does not having the right. I don't want to send any message to anyone else. So in that particular case, the unauthorized user is very harmful for the communication. So preventing such kind of unauthorized users attacks is nothing but the cryptography. So how can we prevent that particular attack? The prefix crypt means hidden. So what is meant by cryptography? Crypt plus graphy is nothing but the cryptography. Now what it means by crypt? Crypt means hidden. And graphy means writing. So the hidden writing is nothing but the part of cryptography. So cryptography involves creating written or generated codes that allow the information to be kept secret. So what kind of writing will be there? That will encode the given message. So if I want to send you some message such as hello, then that will try to encode the message in terms of like A, B, C, D, E. So if the third party try to observe the message, then also he is not able to understand the meaning of A, B, C, D, E. And when that will goes towards the authorized user, that means towards you, then you are able to decrypt it or decode it. That is nothing but A, B, C, D, E will reach towards you. You are able to decrypt it and you are getting the message hello, which I try to send you. So this is nothing but what? Converting this input into the some hidden format which cannot be understood by the third party is nothing but cryptography. So this here the message will kept as a secret. Cryptography converts the data into a format that is unreadable for an unauthorized user, allowing it to be transmitted without unauthorized entities decoding it back into a readable format, thus compressing the data. Simply, here such kind of message which is having no any meaning. So if it is observed, listened by the unauthorized user, then also he or she cannot understand the meaning of that message. And so that this will become the secret transmission of a message. So it is related with cryptography and it can be decoded only with authorized user. The process of conversion of ciphertext to the plain text is known as decryption. Now we have to understand what it means by text. Text means what? Message. So message are of two types, the input message and output message. So whenever I require to write down a input message, then that is known as the plain text. And when that will be encoded into the format which cannot be read by the unauthorized user, then that is known as what? The ciphertext or the output message. So The process of conversion of ciphertext to plain text is known as decryption, while the process of conversion of plain text to ciphertext is known as encryption. So, how we can elaborate these two terms? Plain text. It is used to refer to the information in the language that sender decide to send to receiver. It is also referred as a clear text. So, to the plain text, we can call it as clear text. So, plain text is referred to as input to the encryption algorithm. The term clear text can also refers to sound, images, or other information that is transmitted without encryption. Now, we will try to understand. This is nothing but the sender. This is nothing but the receiver. I require to transmit a message. So, the first message is input message, to which we can say plain text, or we can say it as clear text. And when that will try to convert into the other form, the process is known as encryption. And this process of converting the input into the other form of output is known as what? Ciphertext. So these are the simple scenario. How can we elaborate plain text and ciphertext? So our secret key or our secret message is going to convert with the help of the process encryption. So similarly, when you try to convert ciphertext into the plain text, then the process is known as what? Decryption. So as like the algorithm encoding and decoding, we can replace the term from encryption and decryption, and input and output we can replace by plain text and ciphertext. So this is nothing but what? Conversion of cipher to plain text is decryption. Yes, it is true. Conversion of plain text to ciphertext is known as what? Encryption. And these are nothing but the sender and receiver. Input is known as plain text or clear text. Output is known as ciphertext. Now, the clear text, that means the plain text, can be referred as sound, images, or any other information that is transmitted. But what? Without any encryption. Why? Because the plain text does not having any encryption algorithm, or it is not an encrypted message. An encrypted message is what? When you will try to encrypt the data of plain text. So plain text is nothing but input for the encryption. So here we can say any data which can gives you the clear idea about the text from the sender. That is nothing but plain text, but it can be transmitted without encryption. So it can be the sound, image, or any other information. So similarly, ciphertext. It is used to refer to the information in the encoded language. So after the plain text is going to convert into the ciphertext, encryption occurs. So the data is nothing but what? Encoded data. So when hello we try to put as an input to the sender and to receiver, A, B, C, D, E will reach. Then A, B, C, D, E is nothing but what? Encoded data or encrypted data. So this is nothing but what? Ciphertext. Now, on the basis of these two types of texting, there are few types of operation which we can operate on the plain and ciphertext. The first is substitution and second is transformation. These are the types of operation to convert the plain text into the ciphertext. Now what it means? Substitution means replacement of every letter in the plain text by some other letter to the conversion into the ciphertext. That means the number of bits present in the plain text as well as the number of bits present in the ciphertext must be equal. So P, Q, R, S, T is going to convert into A, B, C, D, E. Here how many bits are present? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means the term every letter is play important role in the substitution. So T is going to replaced by A, Q is going to replaced by B, and so on. So this is nothing but what? This will be your encoded data or encrypted data. and this will be your plain text. Encoded data means what? Ciphertext. And this is what? Plain text, or it is also known as input or clear text. So every letter is going to substitute by the every other letter, but which cannot be understood by the unauthorized user, that means the third party. And the second is nothing but transformation. Now what it means by transformation? Changing the position of letters from plain text is transformation. Now the same message you try to transmit, but then how it is in the other form. Always the other form, that does not means that you are not able to use the values, characters, symbols which are present in the plain text. It can means that you are going to change the position, and so that the meaning of the letters or the meaning of the message will be changed. Simply, if I want to send 10 from sender, this is an example just. We are not going to use it in the cryptography itself. This is the example to understand how can the meaning of the input and output get changed. Sender wants to send 10, and if he will encode the data as a 01, then obviously though I am going to observe the value 01, that is nothing but what? Not the original message. So the third party, that means the unauthorized party, cannot get the correct information, and this when reached to the receiver, this is nothing but what? Sender, and this is receiver. Then he will decrypt it, and he will get the answer 10, which is exactly same as that of the input. So this is become what? Change in the position, and because of the change in the position, the meaning of the message is going to change. So similarly here, change in the text is going to change the answer. So why I told you that this is not the example regarding the text, because we already know that the plain text, ciphertext is nothing but the types of the input that can be in the form of image, sound, not necessary that that should be in the form of the numbers. So here we try to deal with the characters especially in the form of the text, and hence we try to elaborate the example with the help of some characters. So this can be also the example when we are going to change the position, what will happen on the meaning of the input and output. So the next part, plain text can be proceed as. Plain text means what? Your normal input message as a block and as a string. In the block, input and output both are processed one block at a time. That means number of characters not necessary. You are going to group that everything into a block, and you try to encode a complete block as it is. Then you will try to decode a complete block as it is. That means you will not play with an individual symbol or individual character. This is known as what? Block. So plain text, I can treat it as a block. Now the second is stream. So what it means by stream? The input and output both are processed one element at a time. That means every element they will try to process for the encoding purpose, but at the same time, but the individual element. So you are getting some output also at the same time, but with the help of individual element replacement or encoded output. That means here obviously if you try to observe, this will occurs same time in a complete block manner. That means whatever data that you have to combine in a group, and here you cannot combine it in a group, you have to treat them as an individual block. So this is the difference between block and stream, and we can proceed plain text. That means we can consider our message either that will be a small quantity of a group, or that can be an individual quantity of a multiple blocks. So the next type is types of keys. So there are basically two main types of keys present in the cryptography. One is private and other one is public key. So these keys are used for the two types of encryption algorithm. These are known as symmetric encryption algorithm and asymmetric encryption. So how can we use these keys for these types of algorithm? So first of all, private key. it is a piece of information that used to encrypt and decrypt the message in the encryption. This is the definition of key. Key is nothing but what? Part of information that we can use to encrypt and decrypt the message. Here, only one key is used for both encryption and decryption. That means for the purpose of encryption of the message, means encoding of your message, and decoding of the message, the same key is going to use, and that is nothing but what? Private key. And this is used in the symmetric encryption. So the symmetric encryption, we are able to use the private keys. Every sender and receiver will contain this particular private key in their hand. So private key are in the hand of user as well as receiver, and you can use the symmetric encryption to encrypt and decrypt the data with the help of same key. So this is what about the symmetric encryption using the private key. Now we will go for the public key. So what it means by public key? Now we have to study only public key. Here in the asymmetric encryption, we are going to use public key as well as private key. So this have said that here two keys are used. What are the two keys? Public key as well as private key. So one key is the public key that anyone can access, and the other key is the private key and only owner can access it. The sender encrypts the information using the receiver's public key. Receiver decrypts the message using his or her private key. So the sender requires to encrypt the message into the other form. Now suppose the sender and this is the receiver. Now sender wants to encrypt the message, that means encode the message. Then what he can do? He can use the public key. Public key can access by sender as well as it can access by receiver. So he can use the public key of whom? Public key of receiver. Why? Because he wants to send a message. So he knows what kind of key, that means what kind of secret he is going to use to decrypt the message, but not exactly the same. The public key of receiver he will try to use to send the encoded message, and receiver then use its own private key. The private key is only one. So receiver will use the private key to decrypt the message. So the sender does not having the idea about the private key of receiver. But though if he want to send something to the receiver, what he required? The public key. If I want to broadcast the message, what I will require? Public key. I cannot use your private key with the help of which you will try to decrypt the message. Why? Because the decryption of the message is the secure process. And if I am going to use it, I can decrypt the message and I can also again forward it, or I can listen it, I can observe it if I am the third party. So the private key plays a very important role for the security purpose, and until and up till we are not having the public key and private key, the such kind of transformation of the message with the help of security we are not able to do. So these two types of keys are plays very important role. Keep in mind, in the asymmetric encryption we are going to use both the keys. So this is related what? Asymmetric encryption. But in the symmetric encryption we are going to use only private key. The next one is hash function. Actually, these are different from SKC and PKC, that is the private key and the public key. It is also known as the shared key, and hence they have stated SKC. They use no key. That means in the hash function we are not going to use any key, and are also called as one-way encryption. So this is not the bidirectional communication, so that they does not require any keys. They will directly try to encrypt the message, and this is a complete the one-way communication. So hash function is nothing but it will not use any kind of key. This is the one-way communication. Many times we are getting few messages which we cannot modify, and also to which we cannot reply. So that is nothing but what? One-way communication. If I am the receiver and if I am able to reply the message, then that will be two-way communication. But if I am not able to reply, that will be one-way communication. So such kind of messages on which we cannot reply anything, which we cannot modify, so such kind of messages can be transferred using the hash function. So no any key is required for that. The hash functions are mainly used to ensure that a file has remains unchanged. That means a fixed text which will never change for a particular user. So that if I want to broadcast, then that will becomes under the hash function. Types of cryptography. As we have already discussed, there are two types of cryptography: symmetric key cryptography and asymmetric key cryptography. So symmetric key means single common key is used for encrypt and decrypt the message. It does not mean that a single key can be the private or public. It will be private key, and its access is in the hand of sender as well as receiver. So they can use a single key to encrypt and decrypt the message. So symmetric key systems are faster and simpler, but the problem is that the sender and receiver have to somehow exchange the key in a secure manner. That means there will be only one private key which can be accessed by the sender or can be accessed by the receiver, and they have to do this particular use of a single common key with the help of the secure manner transmission. The most popular symmetric key cryptography system is a data encryption system, DES, and we are having such kind of algorithm, deep study of such kind of algorithm in our syllabus. So for the DES we are going to use the symmetric key cryptography. That means only one key we have to share in between the sender as well as receiver, and hence many times the private key can also known as the shared key. Now hash function. There is no usage of any key in this particular algorithm. No any key we are going to use. A hash value is fixed in a length is calculated as per the plain text, which makes it impossible for contents of plain text to be recovered. That means when your message is fixed, it cannot be encoded, it cannot be modified. Then the hash function we are going to use. Only the hash function is able to transmit a data, so this is an one-way communication. So many operating systems use the hash function to encrypt the password. Especially the creation of the password is nothing but what? The very secure format, so that no one can decrypt it. If the hackers are able to decrypt our password, then the online payments will become much more insecure. But as it uses the hash function, so once we will enter something, it will not go for the decryption. Though a lakhs of hackers are present and try to decrypt our password, then also it is not possible to decrypt because it can be developed with the help of hash function. So it is only the one-way communication. So such kind of functions are also important for few applications. Now, the third one is asymmetric key cryptography. Under this system, a pair of keys is used to encrypt and decrypt the information. So, as I already told you, in the symmetric key cryptography, only one key will be used. In the asymmetric key of the cryptography, the pair of key is used. Here, the pair of public and private key is used. Now, public key is used for the encryption and private key is used for the decryption. So, encryption will done by the sender side. So here two types of keys are used. One is public and one is private. Public key is used for the encryption. Now who will do the process of encryption? Obviously sender. So he requires what? Public key. So sender wants public key. But whom? Public key of receiver, so that he can understand to whom he required to transmit a message with the encoded format. So this is nothing but what? The public key is used for the purpose of encryption. Now the decryption, we can use the private key. So who will decrypt the message? Receiver is going to decrypt the message. So what he required? The private key, which does not knows to the sender. So this is such kind of communication is now become the secure communication, because even the sender does not know the private key, then how it is possible to the unauthorized user to understand the private key of the receiver to decrypt the message? Though the unauthorized user tried to observe the message, he can only listen the message, he can only observe the message, but as the message in the encoded format, he cannot understand the meaning of the message. And this is nothing but the secure communication, and hence here we are going to use the two keys. Hence this is known as the asymmetric key cryptography encryption. So in this way, what we try to study the basic things of the cryptography. Cryptography stands for crypt plus graphy, that is hidden writing, means the secure writing in the other form, so that the unauthorized party cannot understand our message, and the transmission will try to be much more secure. After that, the types of the text, that are nothing but the plain text and ciphertext. That means what? Input and output. So the plain text is the clear text, that is nothing but the message in which language sender wants to send, he or she can send. Ciphertext is nothing but the encoded data, that means the other form which is completely different than that of the plain text. So for that purpose, what we can use to make the secure this particular data? So we can use the two types of key. One is the private and one is the public. So only private key, only one key which can be accessible to encrypt and decrypt the data from the sender and receiver. This particular algorithm is known as the symmetric key algorithm. And when there is a public key used by the sender for the encryption purpose and private key used by the receiver for the decryption purpose, this is known as what? Asymmetric key cryptography. So these all concepts are nothing but the basics of cryptography which we require to use continuously in a complete lesson. Thank you.